It's Wednesday, the 9th of December 2020. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. Today's headlines: 2 massive takeover bids lob for listed companies as corporate Australia looks towards growth in 2021. That's our main story. Plus, a 90-year-old Brit receives the first COVID-19 vaccine, business confidence and sentiment surge, and new recommendations for safe drinking limits right before Christmas. The country's largest superannuation fund, Australian Super, has made a $5 billion bid to buy renewable infrastructure group Infratil. The surprise announcement came within hours of US group SS&C Technologies offering around $3 billion for Link Group, which was already a takeover from a rival bidder. It signals the return of M&A activity in a market that's been starved of action as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Australian Super's bid was at a near 30% premium to Infratil's most recent trading price. Infratil is a New Zealand-based infrastructure investment company that owns airports, electricity generators, retailers and telco networks in Australia, the United States and New Zealand. If successful, Aussie Super would delist the firm and run it as a private company. It's part of a growing trend for huge superannuation funds to buy assets, delist them and run them privately. Aussie Super has around $20 billion of its $180 billion portfolio invested in infrastructure assets. Infrastructure assets are popular because they're stable, providing long-term consistent returns, perfect for a superannuation fund. There are tens of billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines, waiting for opportunities in financial markets, be that in equities, property, infrastructure, bonds, or alternate investments. It's been sitting there throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and the change in fortunes of the Australian economy may just be the tipping point for a rush of activity. In overseas news, a Brexit deal inched closer overnight, with the UK agreeing to change so-called law-breaking clauses from its proposed legislation. It's coming down to the wire, with a deal needed within days to allow Parliament to pass any compromise ahead of the 31 December cut-off date. V-Day has begun in Britain. That's the first day of a mass vaccination program using the Pfizer-BioNTech drug to deal with the coronavirus. The first jab went to a 90-year-old British grandmother, Margaret Keenan. There's a name for future trivia quizzes. Japan has announced a near $1 trillion economic stimulus package to help its economic recovery from COVID-19. The land of the rising sun is the third largest economy in the world and a major importer of Australian goods and services. Locally, the Aussie dollar hit a new 28-month high yesterday of 74.53 US cents. It appreciated as the price of iron ore headed towards $150 a tonne after Chinese imports hit a new record level in November. The National Australia Bank monthly business survey showed a rebound in both business confidence and conditions during November. Confidence is at a 2.5-year high, while conditions are at a 20-month record. The survey followed an easing of restrictions in Victoria and the rest of the country, as well as the Reserve Bank cutting interest rates. Business sentiment and investment is critical to the economic recovery. In fact, it's a missing piece of the puzzle to create jobs, so the survey was welcome news. Meanwhile, the ANZ Roy Morgan measure of consumer confidence was at its highest level for 2020, rising almost 2% last week. Australia's international borders will stay closed until at least March. On making the announcement, Minister Greg Hunt said the international world remains a challenging and dangerous environment. It means cruise ships will have to stay away until then. The government's Foreign Relations Bill passed federal parliament yesterday. That's the one that gives the foreign minister veto over deals with other nations like China. It came as China suspended a 6th beef exporter from Australia, with no reason given for the ban. Staying on the China theme, new figures show that more than 3,000 Hong Kong citizens have been offered safe haven in Australia after the Communist Party's crackdown in the territory. G8 Education will pay up to $80 million in remediation costs after a review identified non-compliance with a number of relevant awards for its staff. The Financial Intelligence Regulator has asked banks to flag National Disability Insurance Scheme providers who send money overseas, make large cash withdrawals at gaming venues, or spend up on holidays and luxury goods. Austrac said a list of transaction types may indicate a customer is trying to defraud the scheme. Good news for the media companies. Legislation due to be introduced to Parliament today will effectively force Facebook and Google to negotiate with the media companies to reach commercial arrangements to access content. This is a big deal, a global precedent, and the world is watching. And the country's chief scientific body has recommended new healthy drinking limits for adults, cutting recommended alcohol consumption from 14 standard drinks a week to 10. Why do they release this stuff 2 weeks before Christmas? That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. There's more on all of these stories in today's full Fear and Greed podcast, as well as an interview with KordaMentha Executive Director, James Wagg. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.